Well, hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. Jiu-Jitsu 2000 here today. I'm back. I hope you guys are doing fantastic out there. I've got an interesting video for you today. We're going to talk about the Suzuki DR650, and in today's video, we're going to change the oil and oil filter. The reason I'm doing this video is because I see a lot of confusion and people making this process way more difficult than it needs to be. It's very simple to change the oil on these bikes. Some of the things that you'll need for this process is a rag. We have a 3/8 ratchet with a 17mm socket. We have a 1/4 inch ratchet with an 8mm socket. We have a replacement oil filter for the bike. Here's the information on the back in case you're interested. We have 3 quarts of GN4 10W40. This is the 4-stroke oil. We're only going to need 2.5 quarts, but I have 3 quarts here. So these 2 are full and this one's halfway full. And then of course you can see that I have a little ice cream bucket. This is something to catch the old oil in. And then I have a small 2x4 piece of wood. So that's all we need for this process. We're taking a look at the right side of the bike. A couple things I want to point out. These 3 fasteners that you see, those are the 8mm. This is the cap for the oil filter. Right here is the oil fill plug. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take this off. And this will let the air allow the oil to drain out of the bike very easily. And on the case right here you can see it tells us how much oil to put in, 2,300 milliliters. And then right down here there's a sight glass that'll show the oil, but right now the bike is on the kickstand, so when I bring the bike back you can see the oil in there. Now I did already warm up this bike for a few minutes before shooting this video. So I'm going to go ahead and start by putting the oil pan below. I will get my 17mm here, and underneath I'm going to take out this drain plug. That's this guy right here. Okay, here we are underneath the bike. Got my ice cream bucket close. We're just going to go ahead and disconnect this plug. And be careful with your fingers. I'm kind of pushing upwards towards the bike because the oil is kind of warm. And just have your rag ready and stuff because the oil can spill. But that's why I push it up towards the bike so that I don't let the oil out until I'm ready for the oil to come out. Okay, here we go. There's the oil coming out. Reach in and grab that plug right quick. And we're going to just drain this oil. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important to warm up the bike, is so that the oil flows very freely. Boy, that oil's dirty too. Very dirty oil. So now I'm going to take this little block of wood that you saw and I'm going to prop the bike up so that I get a little bit more oil out of the bike. So I'll just set this right here. You can hear the oil coming out a little bit better, so that's all I need. And when I make that small adjustment, you can see that it lets a little bit more oil out. So that's what we're looking at. We've got the little piece of wood underneath the kickstand there that levels the bike out. And just be careful that the piece of wood ain't too high. You don't want the bike coming towards you, falling on you or something. So we're just gonna let that oil come out, and that oil was pretty dirty. It needed to be changed, that's for sure. Now when you take these 3 out, just be aware that you will probably get a little oil dripping out of there. So don't let that scare you if you see a little bit of drippage. That's kind of normal. There comes that little bit of oil out, so I'll move my bucket just a little bit to catch whatever comes out of there. There's one. There's two. You can feel the spring pushing against you, so that's why I grabbed that. You'll see this little O-ring right here. We're gonna keep this O-ring. We're gonna clean it. Normally the only time that you would want to change this is if it had damage to it or if it was bad or something like that. And in our case, I think that O-ring's probably just fine. It looks good from what I can see. There's this little spring, so you just want to inspect the spring, and the spring fits on the inside of this cover. And from here, we'll pop out the old oil filter. Yeah, that bad boy's dirty. There's also going to be an O-ring inside. Hopefully you're seeing that. There's an O-ring inside that rests around that stem. I will take it out temporarily just to inspect it, make sure that the O-ring is okay. See it on my rag there? That's the O-ring from the inside. Now sometimes the new oil filter will come with replacement O-rings, and in some cases it won't. So I have two O-rings and a spring that I'm going to use. I'm going to take my rag and just kind of clean inside this cavity. Just want everything nice and clean. Nothing too crazy. It's not very advanced, pretty simple. So now I'll take the replacement oil filter. It does not come with a O-ring in my case. I'll put the old one in there. And what we'll do is we'll reuse this O-ring. We'll just stick it right inside there. That O-ring's fine. Nothing wrong with it. We'll put the new oil filter against that. Then we'll take this O-ring and I'll just dip it in oil. I want to get a little bit of oil on it. I'll set it right here in the cap, right in that little groove. And then with my finger, I'm just running a little bit of oil around it. Make sure that when you put this cap back on that you don't smash the O-ring or crimp it or anything like that. Don't want any problems like that. So make sure it looks nice and clean. Now that we have the cap nice and clean, we're going to place the spring on the cap, and we'll put the cap and spring on the bike, and we'll just kind of push against that and start these three 8mm bolts. You want to thread these in evenly, so you don't want one tightened and then work on the others. You want to kind of tighten them all kind of uniform. That way you don't have a cap here that's cocked or crooked. You want it straight. So I'm just holding against that spring with my finger and hand tightening these little 8mm, and that kind of guarantees that everything's going smooth and straight. Clean it up if you got any excess around there, and then of course at this point we're just gonna hand tighten these. Nothing too crazy, pretty simple. You don't want to gorilla tighten these because this is an aluminum housing and these are steel screws, so you don't want to strip out that housing. If you have a torque wrench, they say that it's 7 foot-pounds, but I don't have one, so I'm just going to use a little common sense and just snug them up until they feel good to the touch. I'm not going to overdo it. This isn't holding the Eiffel Tower, this is just holding in an oil filter, so it's not that big of a deal. Now from here I'm just going to wipe the excess off. And that part is finished. Since you're down here, you might as well clean the sight glass with the rag. Make sure that that area is nice and clean. Now before you put all your brand new oil in, some people would recommend replacing your drain plug to a magnetic drain plug. You can see there's a little magnet right there, and what that does is that attracts any metal that might exist in the oil and it keeps it contained. So keep that in mind as well. They're not that expensive, and it's a good addition to your bike. I'm going to move this oil out of the way. Let's go ahead and reinstall the oil drain plug right there. And the same thing applies. You don't want to over tighten this stuff. That's all we need. Just a little common sense in tightening. Doesn't have to be too crazy. At this point, I'm going to take the block out from underneath the kickstand and I'm going to start pouring oil in. You can use a funnel or you can just be patient and pour nice and patient. Again, this is going to take 2.5 quarts of oil. And that's all there is to it for filling. From here we'll install the filler cap right there. Wipe off any excess that might have spilled during the filling process. So now that we have new oil in the bike, we're going to go ahead and start it and let it run for a few minutes. And then we'll come back and check the oil on the sight glass after we turn the bike off and let it settle for a few minutes. Okay, the bike has had a little bit of time to run, and right now I'm looking at the sight glass at the oil level, and what I'll do is I'll straighten the bike up and make the bike kind of level, and I'm looking at the oil level. And what I want to see is I want to see the oil level somewhere between the full and the low on the sight glass. So as you can see, in our case, our oil level is good to go. I'm also inspecting for any oil leaks around this part that we took off or around the drain plug down below, since we just tampered with all of that. And I don't see any oil leaks, so this is good to go. Well folks, I want to say thank you for joining me today on this video, changing the oil in the Suzuki DR650. This works from models 1996 all the way to current models. This happens to be a 2018 model that I showed in this video today. I hope this video helped you out. Please feel free to leave comments down below, like this video, share this video, and until next time, again, thanks for watching. I hope you have a beautiful day. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.